I am proudly wearing my Rocinante shirt. Rocinante, really amazing story. This is their episode. I'm going to miss you guys. Welcome to Enchantment of Eternity's review for Babylon's Ashes, which is episode 6 of season 6 of The Expanse. This video is a part of a series of videos where I review episodes of The Expanse, so I have to start with the spoiler warning for The Expanse. If you haven't seen up to the very final last episode of The Expanse at this point in time, then you will not want to watch this video, otherwise some things will be spoiled for you. So, very bittersweet moment. This is the final episode of The Expanse, the series finale. As always, as is tradition with The Expanse, and the Expanse has not broken tradition. The final episode of each season is named after the book that the season is based on. So Babylon's Ashes is the name of the 6th book, which this season has followed. And it's the name of the episode. Ends up being the name of the final episode of the show. Now, it does remain to be seen whether or not this will remain the series finale. Only time will tell. But I am going to say, as long as it is the series finale, this will be in my list of favorite series finales of all time. This easily makes my top 3 best series finales of all time, along with the TNG finale, All Good Things, and the Breaking Bad finale. It remains to be seen where in that top 3 it fits. Does it actually unseat Breaking Bad as my favorite series finale of all time? Well, I gotta think about that. I think it's a possibility because Breaking Bad's best episode was the second to last episode, not the finale, even though I do think their finales, well, it was the best finale so far. But it's something I gotta think on. But what I'm certain of is that it has made my top 3 best series finales of all time. Now, it's possible that books 7, 8, and 9 will never be adapted, and this will remain the series finale. But it's also possible that books 7, 8, and 9 will be adapted, yet this will still be the series finale, because maybe they'll be adapted into a sequel series, technically, or a couple of miniseries or TV movies, which I'm not ruling out. I think it's plausible. I think it'd be better than nothing. But, maybe not. But until then, I'm going to consider this one of the best series. And that's a perfect finale for The Expanse, in my humble opinion. Now, this episode was exciting. It was interesting. It had character moments. I had several moments that brought me to tears. It was like the beautiful send-off to this amazing show. The beautiful send-off that we all deserved. However, knowing the end of book 9, if they ever did adapt the future books, I think that finale could be even better. But I won't even get to that. This one definitely met the highest standards. And it's hard because most shows can't pull off a series finale very well. Which is why it's actually easy for this to make my top 3. Because beyond my top 3, most series finales are great, but not that good. All the other ones in my top 10. And most series finales aren't good at all or severely lacking. So this one definitely passes the test. So let me jump into the episode proper. Oh yeah, before I do that, I do want to mention that there was one aspect of the finale that I felt was rushed. This is a lot of people were worried about that. This was only a 6-season episode, or 6-episode season. Sorry, and I felt like they could pull it off, and I think they did. But there was one moment in this episode that I think felt rushed and should have been longer. Maybe they should have, had more episodes, or not done the Laconia storyline and had that as its own separate short film, so you could have time to flesh this out. But I'll get more into the moment I'm talking about later. But it doesn't detract from how amazing this episode is for me. Anyway, let's jump in the episode proper. Let's start with Laconia, which I do think was the weak part of the episode, but it was still interesting. It was, so a lot of people speculated that, Zan, Kaoru's younger brother, was going to turn to another Katoa, like a protomolecule hybrid, a monster, and start killing people. But that's not what happened. In fact, when I was reading the short story that this was based off of, I kept singing the song, "I don't want to be buried in a pet cemetery," because it reminded me so much of the book and the movie Pet Sematary. Now, if you're not aware of that, it's this pet cemetery where you'd bury the pets and they come back to life, but they'd be evil and kill people, and they buried his young son who got killed and came back as a little zombie that killed people. But when I look at this story, it's actually not Pet Cemetery, it's Frankenstein. Because the young boy brought back to life did not, in fact, come back as a monster, but his parents treated him as if he was. Now, he was definitely changed. There was definitely something seriously off about him. When his father cut him, he had black blood and his eyes were a shade of black. But he didn't turn into a monster, and as it's implied by the end of this thing, this is the end of the story. So he never does. And I'll say that as someone who's read the books. He doesn't. He's the same boy with the same feelings. In fact, he reaches out and is like, "I love you, give me a hug." And his father's reaction is "Ah!" It's the freak out zombie, and freak the fuck out. Which, to be fair, is a reasonable reaction to have when your dead son comes back to life, looking all weird and black and black eyes and whatnot. But it didn't turn him evil. It just made him different somehow. Yeah. And so his sister can see that. She has the mind of a child who doesn't really have the hang-ups that the other adults do, and she doesn't see him as a monster or freak. So she tricks her parents, runs off into the woods with him, and he says there's nothing you can eat, has been established, humans cannot eat this food in Laconia. And she says, "Don't worry, if I die, the dogs will fix me," which is again really implied here that we're meant to take, and I know from reading the books it actually is the case. She does in fact die, and the dogs revive her. Which is I think it's a very ominous ending. It's a very messed up ending that because her parents freaked out, it's going to cause her to turn into a protomolecule freak as well. Now, I'm gonna say something some might consider spoilers. So if you wanna, you can skip ahead a couple of minutes. I'm not gonna spoil anything really specific. And who knows? Maybe books 7, 8, and 9 will never be adapted. So unless you plan on reading them, maybe I'm not spoiling anything. But these characters appear again in books 8 and 9. And they actually become quite important characters in book 9, and even though it's many years later, they're the same age because they can't age because they already died, but they're really the same people that they were, but they just have all this other proto-molecule knowledge. So they never turn evil, per se. They actually like help our main characters. So that it actually becomes very important. So the fact that they did include this does make me think that they are setting up for adapting those books. But it does make me wonder, because in the novels the children never age, but obviously these actors are going to age, so I don't know what they're going to do about that, especially if they don't adapt it for several years. These actors maybe they come up with bullshit excuse why the actors look older. I don't know. But I don't know. I will say that seeing this story adapted on screen was not as powerful as the short story. I thought the short story was very powerful. It was a really dark, twisted, ominous story, as you can imagine, because it ends with the young girl like dying so she can get resurrected by this weird alien shit. Now, and also in the future novels they refer to the if I remember correctly, they refer to the dogs, the strange dogs, as repair drones. So it really tells you what their function is. But yeah, so yeah, it was kind of twisted, especially the scene where we saw from Zan's eye, and is from his perspective, and it was all blue protomolecule-ish, saying that there's something really off about it. But it was a bit of a twisted ending. And also we get a shot of Duarte, looking all self-satisfied and almost smiling as the protomolecule platforms come online, and they're more blue, and he's messing with things again, setting up for those next books. So, and you listen to the producers, and they're talking about how they're really hopeful that they'll get it adapted. So I think they will, but. And they definitely threw these scenes in to set up for those stories. So if they never get adapted, it's going to be kind of like a broken promise or broken link, whatever. But I guess we will just have to see about those. Anyway, let's go ahead and move over to the story proper. Let's start with this strategic meeting that they're having. We see Holden and Bobby Draper and Drummer and the Avasarala and the Martians are all there planning their next move. And basically they want to throw everything they have at Marco, as they were saying in the previous episode, but this time is different because they also have Drummer and her help, so they're able to effect a more effective strike against his forces and split them up into three and try to attack all three forces before they reach the gate, which Avasarala says is pretty even, and she doesn't really like the odds of it being so even, and so Holden brings up Plan B, which is that he will take a ship, a Belter ship, into the ring gate and have Bobby Draper will lead a force onto the ring station to try to disarm the rail guns, so that they can take over the rail guns and then use them against Medina Station, and then they can hold the ring space, and then if Marco and his forces come in, they could just destroy it with the ring gun. So a very sound plan, but Avasarala doesn't really think so. Holden tries to convince her, look, I know the ring space, I know what I'm doing, and of course, they don't mention what the plan is in this scene, but as we'll see, that the plan is to have hundreds of, almost thousands of tiny little boxes. So and some of them don't even have anyone in it at all, and others have just one person in it, and so it's there so the rail guns don't have anything solid to focus on. So they have way too many targets, and so most of them should be able to slip by and get them to the station so they could attack the rail guns and take them over. But Avasarala tells Holden that he's naive again, and says it's a miracle that he's lived this long. He says he's optimistic. And he says, it's a miracle you've lived this long. Which I thought was a fun little moment. So anyway, we get a couple scenes on the Rosinante building up to the battle. These, again, were all great character moments that touched my heart, that I thought was amazing, particularly with Clarissa gaining Naomi's respect. I love that, where she, pointed out to Clarissa, it's like, hey, can you do this repair job? And Amos is like, hey, that's supposed to be mine. And she was just saying, no, well, and pointing out how Clarissa calls Amos boss, and that he used to. It was a nice callback to the first season. Again, that's what every finale should do, have sort of a sense of like full circle, which I think this episode does a really good job at. And then later, Naomi explains to Holden that she was, at first, didn't like the fact that Clarissa was trying to wash the blood off her hands, and because that's what she wanted Philip to do, and that's what she tried to get Philip to do, but he wouldn't do it, so she was kind of resentful that she gets to do it, but now she's accepted that, and has accepted her, and it was just so damn touching. But we also get Clarissa. We find out that she has a little attack and goes to the med bay and doesn't tell anyone, but has the reading that says that she basically has 5 years to live. Because of, and if you're not aware, this is because of the implants. She had these military upgrade implants, which that's what allows her to go like all psycho. But she was, when she got them, she never intended to live longer than that attack, so it wasn't a long-term plan, and there's a reason why they were illegal, because they kill you. They're not like well suited, and so they are slowly killing her. So that was quite a sad revelation, but immediately she goes, and when she finds this out, her first reaction is to go make dinner, make a meal, a nice meal for the crew. And again, a really touching moment. I love how Bobby and Amos come in and try to grab the food and just smacks him away. Well, no, she smacks Amos away, but then Amos smacks Bobby away. That was a nice little progression. And then they share a nice meal together. It kind of reminds me of when the Rosinante crew shared a meal with Miller when he first joined the crew. And it's really cementing this new crew with the three staple members of Holden, Naomi, and Amos, but also Bobby and Clarissa. And this seemed like a really nice bonding moment before the battle. And I know someone who hasn't read the books, didn't know what was going to happen next, might think that this is foreshadowing one of them dying. In fact, I even had me doubting that maybe they're going to change the books and have one of them die during the battle. But because that's usually when you have a nice moment with the whole family sharing this moment, that they're going to lose a member of the family, but they don't. And it's still great that they did this before the battle. It shows that they're coming in as a family. It was a beautiful moment. So then we have the UN and Martian and Drummer's forces engage Marco's forces, which was really exciting to get things going. And I love how Avasarala goes to the front of the. Obviously, her ship isn't anywhere near the battle because that would be stupid. But they're close enough where the captain of the ship is really worried and say, "Hey, you should go to the back." And she's like, "No, I want to be here. I want to oversee the battle if I can see anything." And then he makes some dumb comment about how, more Belters should join us. Why is it only a few Belters joined us? And Avasarala defends Drummer. Is like, look, it was too little too late. Like, we didn't do enough. And that was actually, it shows her perspective, which I think helps set up for why she has to change of heart at the end of the episode. It makes it more more understandable and not coming out of nowhere. That she has already had this mindset that Earth has done a lot of harm to the belt, and she didn't expect that much from the belt in response. And we also see Drummer and Walker preparing to attack one of the minor forces, because the Marco's forces were split into three. The UN fleet is attacking, the main source with the Pella, Marco's ship, and Drummer's just attacking some, mostly a freighter that has supplies, and there's like one frigate to protect it. So it appears, but that actually turns out not to be the case. Alpha Sorella catches out onto it pretty fast as something's wrong when they fire on the Pella and is easily wounded, but none of Marco's other ships go to protect it. And so immediately alarms go off that something's wrong, that it's a decoy. And in fact, and again, this continues to show Marco as a brilliant strategist. He's not just an egotistical asshole. He's also a great strategist, which is why he's a great adversary, which is why he was a great villain. And he actually had his ship disguised as a helpless freighter that Drummer's forces were attacking. And so he sheds the disguise and then easily destroys Drummer's fleet, which was, to be fair, the lesser of the fleets, because they were going after what they thought was the smallest target. Turns out it was actually Marco hiding in there. And this was really devastating. I love the shots of all the I can't remember what they're called, but the shots firing through Drummer's ship, like you could see the trails of the bullets, and there was like a giant hole in her command center, and like almost everyone there died except for her and one other person. And it showed, and she reports that like 4 of our other 5 ships were destroyed. Like they had survivors, but they're like not functional. And she's telling the rest of them to leave, and she's going to make a suicide run on Marco's ship to try to destroy it. But Walker beats her to it, which is a nice moment. Walker is a character who barely appeared in the show. Like, I bet you his screen time was actually less than 20 minutes. But he's such a great character. He already won my heart. He's like a really fun guy, and then of course he's just like very casual. He's like, no, I beat you to it. I got to you first. We both had the same idea, but I got there first. And so he does a suicide run on the Pella, which does significant damage to Marco's ship. It does make me wonder that maybe why Drummer called off her suicide run, because if he already did damage to her ship, maybe if she did another suicide run, maybe that would be able to destroy Marco's ship. But maybe there's something I'm not aware of that's making a second suicide run impossible. Maybe, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, regardless, it does significant damage to Marco's ship, so much so, in fact, that Rosenfeld dies, which was also a powerful scene. I mean, this is, again, a villain. She's second in command to the main villain, but you actually feel sad. They actually made her death sad, and especially affects Philip, which is very important for Philip's character story, the way that he sees what happens when you support Marco, and the way she's like, I don't want to go, and then dies right as Philip is watching her. Very powerful moment. Absolutely. So then we go to the Rosnates attack on the ring, and this, again, absolutely amazing. It was one of the best if not the best. I think I might go as far as to say it's the best battle sequence in the entire show. I'll have to review the show, but I'm pretty sure this is my favorite. So we get it's such a beautiful shot when you see all those tiny little boxes like going out of the ship and just flinging towards the ring gate. It's so amazing. And then it's super intense. And the Rosnate goes in with them to try to protect them. But, of course, they're taking heavy fire from these railguns that easily destroyed Martian fleet. In fact, it is destroying these, even though there's hundreds of targets, it's destroying them a lot faster than they thought. And so they're at risk of killing everyone, so the Rosnate has to get involved. But it gets hit, and so then it gets at risk, and since Amos went on the fleet of tiny ships, that Clarissa's there to have to do the repairs. And this was, again, very intense moment of Clarissa. I did actually fear for her because I thought maybe the show might change this up. But she steps up and she risks her life and saves the ship, and definitely earns Naomi's respect when Naomi goes to check on her, and they had that bonding moment between her again. Because before it was a nice moment when Naomi admitted to Holden and to Amos that Clarissa deserves respect, but it was even nicer when Naomi said it to her face, and they had that moment where the two of them bond. It was, again, I think another moment in this episode where I shed a few tears. It was such a beautiful moment. So then we get the little landing party, the strike team with Bobby Draper and Amos landing, and it was, again, such the way this was shot reminded me a lot of like the way D-Day was shot in Saving Private Ryan. I think it was trying to evoke that chaos of, like, you know, all these shots and chaos around them firing, and it's like very likely they're going to get killed. A lot of them do get killed, and that shot of Amos, and especially since they were having to go in so fast to avoid the rail guns there, and then Amos like screaming, and you see all the explosion behind him was absolutely beautiful. This is why, part of the reason why I think this is the best battle sequence in the show, hands down. And when Bobby and Amos do arrive, they find that their numbers are a lot less. A lot less of them survived. And it's funny, Amos's line about, that's funny, Naomi's usually right with her math. Meaning she estimated a lot more than what survived than what did. And also there was a nice line when they were on their way where Amos tells Bobby it's a lot like playing Russian roulette with lower chances. And she's like, what is that, some kind of casino game? And he's like, yeah, sort of. Like that was that nice little interchange between them. So again, we get even once there's on the surface of the ring station trying to take over the railguns, there's less of them survived, and what little of them did survive, a lot of those people get killed immediately from the assault of that's from the ground forces there, that immediately like spray them down, pin them down, make it impossible for them to move out. They call for the Rosnate to do an airstrike, but Rosnate, of course, has to hide behind Medina Station, because if they peek out, then the railguns will kill them. And Naomi's trying to come up with a way around that, but it's pretty much, it's not something you can really do on the fly. So Bobby and Amos agree that they'd rather die being shot at than hiding, waiting for attack. Because people start coming down on them from above and shooting them too, so they get even more surrounded. And so Bobby and Amos prepare to leave, but then Bobby decides to leave immediately, which is nice, without her. And we get this amazing Bobby Draper moment. Oh, God, it's like such an amazing... I love that we get this awesome Bobby Draper moment where she goes out on her own, shooting like mad, doing a last mad dash, and she ends up using rockets to destroy the railgun. But then I think she intended to be a suicide run, because then she immediately gets hit by fire, and we see her just lying there continuing to get hit as she's waiting for death. And we see death coming from above, or one of the people coming from above has a kill shot, but he is shot by Amos, who watches her flank. Which I thought of that immediately. That thought about it when it's only important is those who watch her flank, and Amos is there to watch her flank and to save her and to shoot down the other person who is about to kill her. And then Amos then gets pinned. And again, it was a beautiful moment with Amos like holding her, saying, "I got you, Bob," and he's like shielding her from more hits. But then the Rosinante comes out. The railguns were taken out. The Rosinante can come and protect them and shoots their attackers. And so they win the day, but not really, because they destroyed the railguns, and the whole point was to take them over to use them against Marco. But now with them destroyed, which they kind of had to because they would have been killed otherwise, they're left defenseless. So then we go over to Marco, and we see that he receives a message from Duarte where he refuses to send any further aid and says, like, basically, "You were a nice distraction, but I'm kind of done with you now, and I have some gods I want to kill." And so Marco's kind of left up in the air, and then Philip comes in, and God damn it, Marco's so despicable. It's just so annoying. It's so despisable the way he's like, "Oh, have you come to apologize? Because now's a good time." Like, shut up. But it's so within his character. But then Philip is like, saying, "Hey, Rosenfeld's dead." And Marco's like, "Yeah, that sucks. That's a shame. She would have made a great commander of Medina. But, well, life goes on." And Philip's like, "How can you really have that attitude? What if it was me that got killed?" And he's like, "I could have just as easily been killed." Marcus like, "No, I could have just easily been killed." Like, it's, that's what the risk that we take when we sign up for this life, from the life we choose. And I love Philip's response saying, "When did I choose this life? Did I actually choose it?" Like, that was a nice moment. But, and then Marco is like, "No, well, if you died, if it was you, a piece of me would die with you. But I would still move on, because this is what we need to do." And I think this is when Philip really fully realizes that. And in fact, Marcus says something like, "Oh, you should be really aware of this by now." And Philip's like, "Yeah, I am." But he's actually saying, "I'm aware that I should have never supported you." And I think this is when it first comes to his head. And then Marco goes out and makes this big speech about how this is their moment and they're going to defeat the Inners, which isn't really the case. He's not going to defeat the Inners. He's just going to prolong an endless war that could last generations, as Bobby laid out in the previous episode. So it's not actually going to defeat the Inners. It's just going to be a prolonged battle. But anyway, he makes that big speech, and everyone's like, "Balta-Loda," which I love the contrast between Drummer's like Balta-Loda speech in season 3, where it felt kind of silly. It was just about them going in the ring gate. But here is more like sinister. Again, it's misguided. But you could tell that Philip is not into it. He does not chant along with them, and you can tell that he also believes that it is misguided. So then we get we go back to the ring gate with the Rosinante, and they're spelling out the hopeless situation that they are completely defenseless against Marco's forces, and enough of his forces survived and are on their way to the ring gate, and none of the UN or other forces can intercept him before he gets there. So he's definitely going to get there and easily overwhelm them. And Bobby throws out the possibility, or I think Clarissa throws out the possibility of running, but Holden says there's not enough fuel, but Bobby's like, oh, we could go to Medina, take their fuel, and then we can get to somewhere. And I think it was Amos that was like, does anyone really want to run? which was nice. And so they're talking about making a last stand, like using the cargo ship to detonate and maybe take out one or two if they're lucky of Marco's ships. But really, it's gonna be a suicide. Like, there's no way they can survive. They're just hoping they're lucky enough to kill Marco in the process, which they probably wouldn't. Now, I mentioned at the top of my video that there was a moment that I thought felt rushed, and I wish they spent more time on, and it's this moment. I don't know. Again, I might be injecting some of the books into the situation, because the books actually had at least one chapter, maybe two, where they thought that the situation was hopeless and they're all going to die. It was a nice sort of the Two Towers moment. If you don't remember the Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers movie, where there was like, it went on for way too long, by the way, in my opinion, but this went on for way too short, where they were convinced the situation's completely hopeless, they're all going to die, and they were facing an overwhelming odds, and there was absolutely no way to get out of it, and they were kind of just having to make peace that they're about to die. And so that's what we got in the books that I thought was missing here. It was very brief. It was like that one talkie scene, oh, let's run, let's hide, no, let's fight to the death. But then immediately Naomi has her solution, which I didn't like. I think because in the books they actually took over Medina Station, which I was anticipating actually seeing the Medina sets again. I'm disappointed we didn't get to see those. And they were there for like several days. Because space is big. It would take Marco's fleet a long time. In fact, it might even be in a couple weeks, if I remember. But anyway, so they had plenty of time to ponder their impending doom, and it wasn't until months later that Naomi came up with her plan. And I kind of missed that. I wanted, even if it wasn't like 2 weeks, they didn't have to spend forever on it, but I just wanted a couple more character building scenes with them pondering their deaths and certain that they were gonna die and not even accomplish their goal of killing Marco, that there was a hopeless situation that there was no way out of. I wanted that moment to stretch, and I'm disappointed, and it felt rushed that it just went by too fast. I don't know if that's my book perspective, but I feel like they should have gotten rid of the Laconia stuff and had so they could have more time to do this. Personally, I would have preferred that. But, it's not a major complaint. It was still nice. And then Naomi, but this show did set up a different situation because in the previous episode, Ellie had already established that if too many ships go through the rings at the same time, that's when the angry aliens show up and start killing people. So when it's like overloaded. And so, and in the books, Naomi, I figured it out here at this moment. So they kind of already knew that. It was just a matter of, hey, saying, why don't we do that? So you could argue that it shouldn't have taken that long to come up with this plan, but I still would have liked it better. I would have liked it better if it stretched on longer. We got more moments of them thinking that they were facing their certain death. I think there could have been some great character moments out of that. But anyway, Naomi comes up with her plan to cause the ring gates to overload, and I love how they're like, well, do we want to make the angry aliens show up? What if they don't leave? And she's like, no, that's just a risk we'll have to take. And I think based off of their previous experience, they can, because usually they only show up briefly and kill one or few ships. They haven't been able to kill that many. It's just been every once in a while. So I think it's a pretty safe plan, particularly in their hopeless situation. So they do, in fact, execute that plan, and it was such a beautiful moment of seeing Naomi having to be the one to push the button to detonate the ship, which caused the ring space to overload, because she knows that she's sending Philip to his death. And it was, it's really got to me when they had the flashback of her seeing Philip as a little baby. I'm just like, oh, that's like this gut punch. And then when she actually hit the button and we see Marco, this is another thing. I kind of imagined, because I read the books, I knew this happened, but I kind of imagined this moment. I would have liked it if when Marco went through the ring gates, like everyone was cheering, Marco, Marco, and they all get killed while they were doing that. But instead, Marco actually, because this is different in the books, I don't think Marco had any idea what he was walking into. But it kind of is a bit satisfying when I look at it that Marco saw his death coming and couldn't do anything about it. That is kind of satisfying too. The way he was like, "Veer off!" and like yelled, but it was too late. Ship went through, and we see that red thing destroy him, just like they did with the Martian ship at the end of last season. I don't know. We'll see what other people feel, particularly those who haven't read the books, but I felt like that was a very satisfying death for Marco, particularly because Naomi was the one who did it. Naomi was the one who came up with the plan and executed this plan that killed him. That was very satisfying. But then we get Naomi's reaction where she screams, and we see her like screaming and hugging, Holden trying to hug her and console her. Like, that made me cry. That was an extremely powerful moment. It was so sad. Even though I knew, because I read the books, I knew Philip actually didn't die. Which in the show they didn't reveal till a couple scenes later. It was still sad because Naomi thought he died. And it was just such a powerful scene. So that is, and I love how Bobby was like smiling. Yeah, fuck those fuckers. But anyway, so then we get the aftermath, where we see the birth of the transport union, which I think this show explained the gist of the transport union. Basically, a force that's mainly used by Belters to give them a purpose, and so they will be transporting all of the supplies and goods between the colonies, and they'll be controlling all the ring gates, to travel through the ring gates to ensure too many people don't go at once, to stop those angry aliens from showing up again. So this is Alva Sorella taking Holden's warning to heart, saying, yes, we need to regulate travel through the gates so this shit doesn't happen again. But Alva Sorella's idea is to have it be a joint operation between Earth, Mars, and the Belt. And Drummer's not satisfied with that. She wants the Belters to be solely responsible for this whole operation, which I love that the Martian Prime Minister's response is like, even if I proposed this in Parliament, they would overthrow me. Which does show kind of how racist they are. But anyway, I love what Drummer says here when Alva Sorella tries to argue that, this will be a joint effort, we're all going to be in this together. Mandrani points out that Earth has made promises before, like we saw in season 4. There was an alliance between the three powers to control the ring space, but we still see the UN show up and treat Drummer and Astrid like shit, and like take measuring tape to measure up the station. This will soon be ours, and screw you, Belters. So when they've ever tried to make a peaceful arrangement between all three forces, never really worked out that way. And I love what Drummer says in response. She says, Belters are promised a future so long as it remains convenient. We're given a voice so long as the inners control the calm. We have a vote so long as we can always be voted down. Which I think she makes valid points. She did definitely in the minority. And Holden speaks up in defense of her, saying, yes, well, and I also love how Drummer, when I was sure, I was like, you can trust me. And the Drummer's like, actually put me in charge, and you can trust me. I'll be good to you, and I'll treat you well. And so, and she's like, so how come I'm expected to trust you when you won't trust me? And Holden points that out. He's like, look, she's right. You need to show trust. You can't just, enough to just say we're in it together. You have to put yourself in their hands and actually show that you trust her. But Alice Rowell, of course, is looking at it from what the Martian Prime Minister just said, that it's an impossible situation if they tried to impose it. They would never go along with it, would never fly with their governments. So they come up with another solution, and I love this, where Alice Rowell proposes that someone who is a friend to the belt, who is a friend to all three sides, who is apolitical, has no political agenda, but has been shown to be an asset to all three sides, and everyone in the room looks at Holden. And I love that, and he's just like, whoa, wait a second. Which I thought was absolutely great. And so they make him the president of the transport union, which will be, as Alice Rowell pointed out, an independent entity that doesn't answer to Earth or Mars. And so it's its own thing that Holden would be the president of. Which does seem like an ideal situation. I think I can see where Alice Rowell is coming from. I think that's her compromise to make all sides happy, because it's appeases the belt, because it's more independent and it's not like a straight out UN being assholes, and it appeases Earth because it's Holden's an Earther, and appeases Mars because Holden's an Inner and not a Belter. But it wouldn't really work, and Holden knows it. So this is an amazing scene where he gives his inauguration speech, and it's like, and he's reading off the teleprompter, so he's saying his prepared speech about it. He's explaining what the transport union is and how he's proud to be the first president. But then he goes off thing, and I love he holds Alice Rowell back, and it's like, you know what, but I'm really an outsider here. I'm not actually a Belter. Belter should be running this. And he also mentions that one of his conditions of taking the job was that Kamina Drummer was the vice president. And so Alice Rowell sees this coming. She's like, don't you fucking do it. But he's like, my first act as president is to resign and make Drummer the president. It's such an amazing moment. And we see Joseph and Michio in the audience, cheering and being all happy. And I love the look of respect, the nod of respect that Drummer gives Holden. Amazing, beautiful moment. And then Alice Rowell, of course, not happy about it, comes up and is like, you little shit. She's like, I'm gonna undo this. But Holden convinces her. He's like, no, don't even try, because this is what needs to happen. That the belt, in order to keep the peace so a marker doesn't rise up again, and we have true peace between the three powers, the belt needs to have some power. It needs to have independence. And he's right. He's absolutely right. And Alice Rowell can see that. I think she was just going with that it wouldn't be politically viable, and she is going to have a hard time selling this to her Martian allies. But Holden kind of found a way to make it happen anyways, so she can see that and goes along with it. So absolutely amazing moment. So then we get the final scenes of the Rosinante traveling off. We see that Bobby Draper has joined the crew. Finally, this time for real. Bobby's definitely part of the Rosinante crew. They did that fake out at the end of season 3. I think that's when they thought the show was ending, but when the show went on, she's all of a sudden not in the crew. But this time they're making it very clear she's in the crew. And she's a new pilot. And I love how she like jokes around and moves the ship around. And then we get a moment with Amos and Clarissa bonding where she made them the matching pens. It's such a beautiful moment. And then I love how this episode ends. In fact, the whole show ends with another beautiful speech from Naomi. So many seasons have ended with the beautiful. Well, not even seasons. We got one in mid-season or sometimes end of season. But when the storyline comes to an end, we get a nice little Naomi speech with the beautiful music played over it in a montage. Although in this case, we don't get a montage. We get one scene in particular, and that is showing that Philip did, in fact, leave the Pella before it was destroyed. That when Marco was when he had his Belta Loda chant, he, as I said, he was absolutely not into it, and you can clearly see that. He's like, fuck this, I'm out of here. Gets in the shuttle and leaves. So he survived. And I love how Naomi's speech coincides with it, and of course it's no coincidence because what she's saying over top of the scenes of the show Philip leaving absolutely applies to what she did, because she says to Holden that it's more important to help people than to know that you did help people. Sometimes it's more important that they're good even if it doesn't make you feel good, because you never know the effect that you'll have on people. That maybe something you said got to them and affected change in their lives. And it's clear, and there's a bit of a sad irony to it too, because Naomi doesn't know and never will that Philip actually survived, and that she is in fact talking about herself. That she actually made that change in Philip. That something that she said affected him, affected the course of his life, and even though he resisted at first, it did get to him, and it did affect him to change and affect him to survive. And that she saved his life and didn't know. And there's really sad irony to that. But again, it's so beautiful. It was this is another moment where I cried. I absolutely cried when they showed the scenes of Philip leaving under her words that describe it. It was such a beautiful way to end the show. And then, of course, you have Naomi and Holden, like their bond. Again, one of the best romances in all fiction. I don't care what anyone says. And it shows them, Holden making plans for the future, that there'd be work for Rosinante to protect colony ships against pirates, and they can even take a contract with colonies. And I love how Holden brings up, but there's still that protomolecule sample that those Martians have, and it was like, let's not worry about that yet. That's a problem for if book 7, 8, and 9 ever get adapted. Right now, let's just enjoy the moment. And they do. And they have the beautiful theme of the opening theme of the Expanse play, a version of it, as the Rosinante goes out. And we go to credits. I cannot imagine a more perfect way to end this show. Honestly, it was emotional, really got to me. And of course, if you stay and watch the credits, there's not there's not like a ending credit sequence like a Marvel movie. But you know how they have the ring gate in the credits at the very end. It turns red, ooh, ominous, setting up for the next things to be adapted. But yes, I will say definitely perfect ending to the show. Definitely one of the best series finales ever, even if it doesn't remain a series finale. So my rating for Babylon's Ashes out of 10 is of course, it's a 10, the best. There was that one moment that I felt was kind of rushed, and I wish they did well on the fact that they were all about to die for Marco, that they just rushed through that a bit too fast. But that's fine. Like, it's not a big deal. And, of course, the Laconia stuff, like, I could have done without that. I mean, as interesting as it was, they could have used that time to stretch that moment out of order. But those are not huge complaints, and they certainly don't detract from how amazing this ending was, how amazing this great of a ending this was for the show, because it touched on every character. It had all the great character moments. We got Clarissa bonding, the sad truth that she found out she's gonna die, but she still bonds. She saves the ship. We have Amos and Bobby, like the moment where Amos is protecting Bobby, shows up and protects her flank, and the Bobby's amazing badass strike towards the end. We got Drummer and her, like Walker gets to sacrifice himself for Drummer, and then Drummer like becomes the president, and her standing up for the belt, and Holden, of course, like doing the right thing and stepping aside and letting Drummer take over, like. And then Avasarala realizing he's right. Like, this ties up all the character stories of this show has been setting up, and the main plot about the conflict between Earth, Mars, and the Belt, in such a powerful, beautiful way that really honors the spirit of the show. This is a near perfect finale. So that is it for my review of Babylon's Ashes, but not at all it for my coverage of Season 6 of The Expanse, as in a couple days I will be joined by Darren from D's Reviews and Rob from Smirking Reviews to talk about this finale and a live discussion, which I hope you will join us in the chat. I will put the link to that discussion in the description below. You can check it out in just a couple days. On top of that, I will return to do my own review of Season 6 as a whole next week. And the spoilers for that, I think this is an amazing season. Probably the best one, honestly. And then a week later, a week from now, I will be doing another live discussion, this time with my sister Alyssa and Josh, possibly Anna, from Geeksiders, which I was saying before, this is a very fitting to end my coverage of The Expanse with doing a discussion with the Geeksiders, because they're the ones that first got me into The Expanse in the first place, and I did my first ever live discussion with them, so it would be fitting to do my last one with them as well. So very happy that Josh reached out to me for that, so I'm really looking forward to that. So all that coming, and in about a month, on top of all that, I'm going to rank every single episode of The Expanse from what I consider my least favorite to my favorite. And they're all good, really. It goes from mediocre, then very quickly goes to great, and then very quickly goes to amazing. So I love the show so much. And so I will be happy to rank every episode of The Expanse. Which, yeah, I'll try to get that out in a month or so. So all that's coming. You can keep an eye out for all of that, as well as keep an eye out on my channel as I cover many other shows, such as all things Star Trek, covering Prodigy at the moment, but also do retro reviews for older Star Trek episodes, and also other shows like Star Wars: The Clone Wars, and more. So be sure to subscribe so you can keep up with all of that. And thanks a lot for watching.